When clients talk to me about who should serve as their trustee, I tell them that oftentimes serving as a trustee is more of a curse than it is a blessing. I'm estate planning attorney Mike Smith with Smith Barid LLC, and I'm one half of the Estate Planning Guys. Being a trustee comes with a lot of responsibility. And I always tell clients when they talk about, maybe they're going to name a child as a trustee or a friend or another family member, I always make sure that they understand that it's a big job and it comes with a lot of responsibilities, but it also comes with a lot of potential liability. Because if you don't do the job right, you can wind up getting sued as a trustee. And that's not somewhere you want to be. Think about a situation where you agreed to help a family member out to serve as a trustee, or a situation where you asked a friend to serve as a trustee for you, and then for whatever reason your kids decide they don't like the way the trustee's handling it and they file a lawsuit against them. Not a fun position to be in. So let's talk about what the responsibilities of a trustee are and why it can be a curse and not a blessing. So if you're serving as a trustee, there's certain things that you're responsible for, and you have a fiduciary duty to the beneficiaries. That means that you have a responsibility to always put their interests above your own and to act in a way that the beneficiary would if they were making the decisions themselves. So your first responsibility, if you're serving, and let's break this up into two types of trustees. So we could have I would call it a current trustee who's serving as trustee while you're still alive, perhaps. So that would be, sometimes it could be a professional. So you might have a bank trust officer or a CPA that's serving as a trustee while you're still alive, but just not either interested in serving as the trustee or not capable of serving as the trustee. And then the other type of trustee that we could have serving would be a successor trustee. So after you've died, the person that steps in and manages the trust after you've passed away. And the responsibilities are similar but a little bit different for that. So let's talk about a current trustee first. So this is a situation where you're still alive, or maybe a family member passed away and you're the beneficiary of a trust they left for you, and there may be a trustee that's serving in that situation. That I would refer to as a current trustee. So their responsibilities are, number one, to manage the investment of assets in the trust. So they're responsible for making decisions with a financial advisor about how the assets will be invested to be of most benefit to the beneficiaries. And there's two types of beneficiaries they have to be concerned with. The first one is a current income beneficiary. So if you're receiving an income from the trust every month or every quarter or every year, you are considered a current income beneficiary. And then we have remainder beneficiaries. So those are the people that are down the line. So if you're a current income beneficiary, the trust is going to say, hey, when you pass away, these other people will receive the income or the distribution from the trust. The trustee has to be concerned about both of these types of beneficiaries and to balance between these two beneficiaries the investments. Investments could include anything from stocks and bonds, crypto, real estate, basically anything that you could think of that you could own that you're seeking a return from, either income or appreciation. Those could be assets of the trust. In some situations, there are restrictions around what the trustee can invest in, but many different kinds of financial vehicles would potentially be assets for the trust that the trustee would be responsible for managing. The other thing that the trustee has to do is to handle distributions to the beneficiaries. So the trust may direct that, hey, every year the beneficiary is going to receive a check for X amount from the trust. The trustee has to make sure that those checks are cut and sent to the beneficiaries and that they've received the checks. The trust could also direct, like, hey, anytime the beneficiary needs money to pay for their health. So, maybe the beneficiary contacts the trustee when they need surgery, for example, and the trustee would be responsible for writing a check to pay that. There could also be a situation where the trustee would be paying bills on behalf of a beneficiary. So maybe paying the power bill, etc. So it's a lot to keep up with from an accounting standpoint. And then in line with that accounting, the trustee is also responsible for any tax filings. So a tax return has to be filed for the trust every year, and potentially taxes need to be paid if there's been income made for the trust. And that's part of the trustee's responsibility, is to manage those tax filings. Now, that's a current trustee. then let's talk about a successor trustee, because when you die, the successor trustee steps in and they have some initial responsibilities. Number one, they've got to find all the assets. So I know we all do a great job of keeping things really organized and listing out all of our assets in a way that makes it easy for the trustee to step in and just take care of everything. In a perfect world, that's how things would be, but I think we all know that, that's not really how things happen in the real world. So when most people die, there are some assets that, we know about and they're easy to locate, and then things happen. Like, for example, I had a client some years ago who passed away, and months after his death, the trustee found stock certificates dating back decades that were in a drawer at the house. And after we had researched everything, it turned out that those stocks were worth about $500,000 and nobody knew about them. So that's the kind of thing that the trustee is going to be responsible for, is finding the assets, making sure that all of the assets that are owned by the trust are accounted for. The second thing that a successor trustee is going to need to do is to pay off any debts that are owed by the individual who was the beneficiary from the trust. And there are different situations where sometimes those debts would have to be paid from the trust, sometimes not. It depends on the language of the trust, but that is one of the things that the trustee may need to do, is to make sure that debts are paid when that grantor trustor dies. The third thing that needs to be done is the trustee is going to be responsible for making sure that any tax filings are handled. There could be estate tax returns that are due, and that could be the trustee or the executor's job to handle, but the trustee is going to want to make sure that it's done right, even if they're not also serving as an executor. And then ongoing tax returns need to be filed on behalf of the trust. So if there are beneficiaries who will continue to benefit from this trust, the trustee will need to make sure that tax returns are filed every year and that any taxes are paid on behalf of the trust. And then fourth, the successor trustee is going to be responsible for making distributions to the beneficiaries. So that could be a continuing responsibility if it's a continuing trust for these beneficiaries, or it could be a one-time thing where everything's being distributed outright from the trust and there won't be a continuing trust after that. So those are the responsibilities, some of the responsibilities of a trustee, and two different types of trustees that could have to fulfill those responsibilities. As you can see, it's not that easy of a job. There's a lot to take on, and the part that is hard to see is the potential liability. I think of it like an iceberg, and sort of the responsibilities are the tip of the iceberg, and then the liability is everything down here. So trustees going to need to make sure that they have insurance to cover them if there's a lawsuit, and they need to be prepared for the fact that money changes people, and sometimes beneficiaries are going to file lawsuits even if they're not justified, and that's going to be part of what the trustee is going to have to take on. So make sure that anybody you ask to serve as a trustee understands the responsibilities that they'll be undertaking and that they're willing and able to do so. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, then take a moment right now to subscribe by clicking below and turn on the bell notification so you get notified every time we post up a new video. Right now we're posting 3 videos a week with lots of information about various estate planning topics, so you're going to want to make sure to stay on top of that. Click below to subscribe and click right over here to watch the next most relevant video about estate planning. Go watch it now.